You ever notice something strange about the rate of the US dollar in Jamaica? Like every time the US dollar climbs, the news make it sound like a disaster. Headlines about inflation, rising costs, and a struggling economy. But at the same time, a whole set of Jamaicans quietly celebrate. And not because they don't love their country, but because for them, a weak Jamaican dollar actually means a bigger paycheck. So let's reason this out. YouTubers, TikTokers, online traders, and freelancers who receive payment in US dollars through platforms such as Google AdSense, PayPal, and Fiverr often experience the fall of the Jamaican dollar as a form of indirect salary increase. For example, an individual who earns 100 US dollars monthly would have received approximately 15,000 Jamaican dollars at an exchange rate of 150 to 1. However, if that same rate rises to 180 to 1, that same payment would now be worth Jamaican $18,000. This dynamic gives the impression of a pay raise without any increase in productivity. Consequently, for many Jamaicans participating in online commerce, fluctuations in the foreign exchange market can serve as a financial advantage rather than a disadvantage. However, this perceived benefit is not shared equally across the economy. For the vast majority of citizens whose incomes are denominated in Jamaican dollars, currency depreciation translates directly into a higher cost of living. Jamaica's economy is heavily import dependent, meaning that any increase in the cost of foreign goods or services immediately affects domestic prices. Everyday necessities such as food, fuel, and building materials become more expensive, eroding the purchasing power of local workers. In this sense, what benefits a small segment of the population creates hardship for the majority, further widening the socio-economic divide. And this isn't a small group anymore. According to the Bank of Jamaica, remittance inflows surpassed US $3.4 billion in 2023, which is more than the country earns from tourism in some years. That money mostly comes from Jamaicans abroad or from locals earning online in foreign currency. Now combine that with the rise of YouTubers, TikTokers, Amazon freelancers, and digital traders, and you have thousands of Jamaicans who actually benefit when the US dollar gets stronger. In a globalized digital economy, this becomes a strange advantage. You are earning in one of the world's strongest currencies, the US dollar, which powers over 88% of all global foreign exchange transactions, while living in a country where the local currency keeps losing value. That exchange gap becomes your cushion. You're basically riding the global wave of inflation while staying ahead of it locally. But that is just one side of the story. Because while some are getting that invisible raise, the average Jamaican working for a local salary is feeling the opposite effect. The minimum wage might go up once a year, but prices go up almost every week. The cashier making $15,000 per week in 2020 could buy much more then than today. The same basket of goods, like rice, flour, oil, chicken, and gas, that cost $10,000 a few years ago, now cost closer to 16 or 18,000 Jamaican dollars. According to Statin, Jamaica's inflation rate averaged 6.6% in 2023, but the prices of imported food and fuel rose by over 15% in some months. And since over 70% of what Jamaica consumed is imported, every slide in the dollar, it's hard, from the supermarket to the construction site. Now, people often say food prices are go up, and that's true. But here's something we rarely think about. Food prices don't rise as fast as the dollar. If the exchange rate jumps 20%, Food prices might move 5 or 10% at first. And why? Because many businesses try to delay the full increase. Importers absorb some of the cost, hoping the rate will stabilize. But over time, the true cost catches up. And here's where it gets really tricky. When the dollar, or if the dollar finally drops, prices won't go back down. Inflation doesn't reverse itself. Economists call it price stickiness. Once a price goes up, it rarely comes down, even if the exchange rate improves. A shopkeeper can't lower prices if his supplier doesn't. The supplier can't lower prices if gas prices, shipping fees, and global inflation stay high. And remember, inflation isn't just a Jamaican problem. In 2022, the global inflation rate hit 8.7%, the highest in over 20 years, fueled by the Russia-Ukraine war, rising oil prices, and supply chain disruptions. Even in the United States, the country whose currency we depend on, inflation peaked at 9.1%, the highest in 4 decades. So when you think about it, we are importing not just products, but also foreign inflation. Now imagine if the Jamaican dollar suddenly got stronger. Say it went from $160 back down to $120. Sounds great, right? But here's the paradox. Thousands of Jamaicans would actually feel poorer overnight. All those earning in US dollars, like freelancers, YouTubers, small exporters, would see the local value of their income shrink. Their US $100 would suddenly buy $4,000 less Jamaican currency, while shop prices would barely move. It's the worst of both worlds. A stronger currency that doesn't make things cheaper, and a population of digital earners who suddenly earn less. Now, that is why this issue is so complex. The falling dollar looks bad for the country, but it props up thousands of Jamaicans who depend on US earnings to survive. Meanwhile, a stronger dollar looks good on paper, but it squeezes those same people if the rest of the economy doesn't adjust with it. In the wider Caribbean, this same paradox exists. In Trinidad and Tobago, their dollar is pegged at 6.8 Trinidadian to 1 US. Stable, yes, but it keeps exports low and online earners struggling. In Haiti, where the currency has collapsed past 130 gourds to the US dollar, remittances are the main lifeline. Jamaica sits right between those two realities. Not as bad as Haiti, but not as stable as Trinidad. Constantly walking the line. So, what is the real solution, you might ask? It's not about pushing the rate up or down. It's about reducing Jamaica's dependency on imports and the US dollar altogether. That means producing more, manufacturing more, and exporting more. Right now, Jamaica imports over $6 billion US dollars worth of goods annually, but exports less than half of that. That trade imbalance is the root of our currency problem, and until we fix that, the dollar will always control us. In the end, the exchange rate is just a mirror reflecting how dependent we are on others. Some Jamaicans benefit, yes, but the overall system stays fragile. It's like getting richer in a poor country. The numbers go up, but the reality doesn't feel any better. So next time you hear the dollar rate make headlines, pause and ask yourself, are you earning more or paying more? And more importantly, what does it really mean for Jamaica's future? Leave your feedback in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you for watching.